What's up, data analysts? Today, I am going to be going through the T2 exam practice. My hope for this video is that if you're struggling or if you've been having issues with R, I'm going to try to really go through every single part of what we talked about, just touch on it a little bit, so that you have a good understanding of what I expect for you on the T2 exam. So if you can do all these things and if you have your notes, then I think that you will be fine. If you're not so good with this, then make sure that you take your time with this video, pause it, rewind it if you need to, slow it down, whatever you need to really understand this, because all of these things are going to be a part of your T2 exam. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that you need to do is you need to create a new project. And so we're on RStudio Cloud, which is the internet version of R. You can kind of think of, if you're creating a new project, it's basically like you're creating like a new computer. So like we're not going to have any files stored on this computer yet, and we're going to have to upload all the files. We're going to have to install the packages. So a lot of the times, you don't want to create a new project unless you're moving on to something completely new. And you want to keep it separate, kind of like that. So for this T2 exam, we're going to go ahead and create a new project so you can show me that you know how to do all the installing and how to do all the uploading. Okay, so now that we've got our new project created, the first thing we need to do is we need to install the following packages, the readr and the ggplot2. So if you remember, we don't even actually need to open up a new script yet. We are going to eventually have to create a new script. But to install the packages, you actually do that right in the console. You don't need to do that in the script. We only need to do it one time. So to install those packages, we're going to do install packages. And the first one we need is the readr. Go ahead and run that. It'll take a couple minutes. Give it some time. All right, one package installed, one more to go. So we've installed the readr. That will allow us to bring in any of these CSV files that we have. But the other thing that we need is the ggplot2. If we want to create these bar graphs, we need the ggplot2 package installed. So again, we'll do install packages, but this time in quotes, ggplot2. Run that. Again, it'll take a couple minutes. Give it some time. And then once this finishes up, you'll see that blue arrow clicking down at the bottom. You don't see it right now. There's no blue arrow down here. Once you see the blue arrow come up again, then you'll know that you're ready to start. All right. So we see that blue arrow down there. Now we know we're ready to move on to the next step. The next step says call the readr and ggplot2 libraries into your script. Well, if we look, we don't even have a script up here yet. So we need to create a new one of those, a new R script. And now we can go ahead and call those two packages that we just installed into this script. So to do that, library, readr, and then we'll need to make sure we run that. And then library, ggplot2. Again, make sure you run that. And now we're all ready to go. Now we can start to import some files and do some work with the files. Okay, so the next thing it says is to upload the LeBron-career.csv file, which is attached to the assignment, and then assign that data to a new object named LeBron. All right, so if we're looking, we got T2 exam review, the T2 exam practice. See that there's this LeBron-career.csv file. Go ahead and download that. You might have to open it in a new window. But then we can go ahead and download that. And once we've downloaded it, then we can go into our project and we can upload it. We got in our downloads folder, LeBron Career. I have mine stored in a different folder. All right, so now you should see that LeBron Career.csv file uploaded. And so if we want to create the new object, we need to give it a name. And that name is LeBron. We're going to assign that the value read.csv CSV, and then we need to put in quotes the exact title of this CSV file. So LEBRON underscore career dot CSV, end quotes. And if you do it correctly, you should see that you now have a new object that has 1,132 observations of 26 variables. So wow, LeBron's played in 1,132 basketball games. And that's only professional basketball games. That's a lot of basketball. Okay, so let's go ahead and see what we're going to do next. So we've checked this off, checked these off, called the libraries, and then we just uploaded the LeBron career.csv file and named it LeBron. Now we're on step 5. In this step, it wants you to view the variables in first few elements in each of the columns to determine the data types for your variables. Remember, if we're going to be visualizing data, we need to understand what type of data we're visualizing. So let's go ahead and use the head function to see what we're working with. All right. So I see a lot of numbers. So it looks like we have a lot of quantitative data. Okay. Well, we do have a few categorical variables. You can see we have team, because this is just the team that he was on. That's text. And then the opponent, so that's, again, text. Result, that's going to be a categorical variable, right? A loss or a win, loss or a win, loss or a win. But it looks like for the most part, all of these other variables are all quantitative variables. We're looking at percentages, we're looking at the number of threes that he made, the number of threes that he attempted, free throws attempted, rebounds, blocks, steals, all those different things. Okay? So you can kind of get an idea already. So really, if we're thinking about ways that we can visualize these different variables, if we're looking at the team and the opponent, that is going to be where you can use a bar graph, right? Because these are categorical variables. Same thing with result. You can do a loss, we can do a win, right? But if we're looking at these quantitative variables, like your percentages and your free throws attempted and your steals and blocks and points, all of those cannot be visualized with a bar graph, okay? We need a continuous x-axis. So we need to go from 0 to the maximum number of whatever the variable is, okay? And so in order to do that, we would need to create a histogram. All right, so that's why it's so important. This head function just gives you an idea of the different data types so you can kind of move on to see what you're going to do next. All right, so now it wants you to create a one-way table to see the number of games LeBron has played for each team. And you'll notice the most recent team, the LA Lakers, is not included in this data. So if you remember back to when we were creating one-way tables, it's a very easy function, table. And then we just put the name of the data set, so followed by the money sign, and then the variable that we want to display. So in this case, we want to display his team, the team that he played for. That would be the variable team. If we run that, we can see, oh, okay. He played 838 games for Cleveland. That's a lot of games he played in Cleveland. And he played 294 in Miami. I don't know how many he's played for LA yet. Probably less than 100 because they didn't have the full season last year. Oh, actually, no, he's been on LA for a few years now. He's probably played over 100 games for LA. So this data is a few years out of date. But you can see that he obviously played more games in Cleveland than he did in Miami. All right. So the next thing that it wants us to do is it wants us to create an appropriate visualization for this variable. Well, like we said, this is a categorical variable, right? Miami or Cleveland, those are two names, right? Categories that he played on. So if we're going to be creating a visualization for categorical variables, we need a bar graph, okay? So to do that, we're going to go ahead and start with ggplot. And then we need to give the data set, so that would be LeBron, followed by AES. And then we need to give our x variable. So what do we want on the x-axis? Well, the x variable we want is his team, right? The team variable. So we would do x equals team. And then we know that we can create some additional titles and some additional labels. So let's just look at this first, see what happens, and then maybe we can add in some titles and labels after that. Wait a minute, I don't see anything. Oh, it's because I forgot the geom. Don't forget the geom. underscore bar in this case. And now we can get some actual information. So this checks out, right? I mean, it says that he played 838 games for Cleveland, and that's what the bar graph shows. Played 294 games for Miami. That's what this bar graph shows. Okay. Now, if we wanted to add a title and some labels, so the labels already look good. That already has team, that's count, but we do want to add a title. So to do that, you use the additional layer GG title. And in this case, we will give this LeBron games per team. So if we add that in there, oops, I forgot to put it in quotation marks. Quotation marks, very important when you're giving titles. All right, there we go. LeBron games per team. You can see the number of games he played for Cleveland, the number of games he played for Miami. Again, another way we can look at that is with a one-way table. Remember, that is categorical data. Categorical data is displayed with a bar graph. All right, let's jump to the next step. So the next step is to get a summary of LeBron's career statistics. So we want to see how many points did he score on average? How many assists did he have on average? How many steals did he have on average? What was his maximum number of points? What was his maximum number of blocks? We can get all that information really, really quickly by just using the summary function. Summary. And then what are we summarizing? Well, we're summarizing the LeBron data set. Okay, so we can see there's lots of information here. Lots of information here. Game, well, that's just the number of games he played in, so, I mean, that doesn't have any relevance here. Date, so we already learned that we can convert this date to something that's not a character to the actual date format. We would need to do the same thing for this age variable because this is a number. So we could convert that back to a quantitative variable. But team, obviously, that is a categorical variable, so we're not going to see any summary statistics. Opponent, again, categorical variable, so we're not going to see any summary statistics. And then same thing with result, that is categorical variable. Win or loss, so we're not going to see any summary statistics there. Minutes played, that's very similar to date. We could convert this to a quantitative variable, and we could show that on a histogram, but we're not going to do any of that conversion right now. So really, we're going to be looking at these quantitative variables that already have the statistics summarized. So we can see that it gives you the minimum, it gives you the maximum, the mean, median, first quartile, third quartile. So you can get a good idea of what each of these variables look like just by looking at this summary section. All right, so let's see what we need to get from this. Well, it says in a comment, write his average three-point percentage, which is the variable 3p. So remember, to do a comment, you need the pound sign, the hashtag, and then you can put LeBron's career in three-point percentages, and we need to go and look in our summary for that information. So 3p, so his worst three-point percentage was 0. I don't know if that makes sense. Everybody has bad games. Maximum was 100%, so he's been lights out some games. Makes sense. He's played over 1,000 games. But if we're looking for the average, right, that's right here in the middle. So 0.309, so that would be 30.93%. So in a comment, we're going to say LeBron's career three-point percentage is 30. Where are we at again? 30.93, almost 31%. 30.93%. Okay, so you can see that this summary function really beneficial. Gets a lot of information really quick, stuff that we can look at and we can make decisions from. Okay. After we made our comment, the next thing that it wants us to do is it wants us to create a one-way table to see the number of games that LeBron scored a specific number of points. So we want to see, like, does he score 30 points the most, or does he score 15 points the most, or does he score 50 points the most? And we can see that he averages, let's see, his average points per game is 27. So maybe does he score 27 points the most? I don't know. But that's what a one-way table will help us figure out, just like it kind of did when we were looking at the number of games that he played for each team. So to do the one-way table, again, table is your function. We need to give the data set first, and then money sign, and then in this case, we're doing the points variable, so PTS. Okay, so we can see that he scored 3 points only in one game. That must have been like a really bad game, or maybe he got hurt. Same thing with like the 6-point game for LeBron. What? There's no way. He doesn't score like that. But as we get higher and higher and higher, we can see that it happens more and more frequently. Okay, so it looks like he scored 25 points 65 times. I don't know if there's anybody more than that. Oh, look, he scored 19 points 41 times. That's still not higher than 61. Is there any higher than 61? 61? He scored 61 points one time. That's kind of weird. Oh, 65. Duh, right next to it. 65 points. Or sorry, 25 points 65 times. And I think that is maximum. I don't see any higher than 65. 32 is at 61. Of course, that's it. But nope, that's it. So the next question is, in a comment, write the number of points LeBron scores most frequently and the number of times he scored that many points. So again, that one-way table allows us to see that he scored 25 points 65 times. So LeBron has scored 25 points 65 times. So you can think about it, 35 points in 65 of the games as played. So he scored 25 points, exactly 25 points in 65 of the games he's played. And you can see, he scored 26 points 61 times. He scored 29 points 59 times and 32 points 61 times. But the most occurring, so the mode for his points per game is 25. All right. Go ahead and move to the next part here. So the next part says, create an appropriate visualization of LeBron's points per game. Be sure to include the appropriate X label and title. Okay, well, remember, this is quantitative data, right? See numbers, numbers, numbers. So if we're displaying quantitative data, we need a continuous x-axis, which means that we need a histogram to display it. So to create a histogram, the function is hist. Do not want to be typing in the console. Hist, open parentheses. And then we need to give the data set and the variable. So in this case, it would be LeBron, money sign, points. Okay. Now remember, we need to give an appropriate X label and an appropriate main title. So X lab is going to equal, in quotes, points per game. That's the number of points he scored per game. And then our main title, LeBron, points per game. All right, so look at that. It kind of confirms exactly what we saw in this one-way table, right? So the majority of games he's scoring between 20 and 30 points. So you can see he's 38, 41 times, 43 times, 53 times, 52 times, 65, 61. But then after you get, beyond 30, it starts to go down, right? I mean, he's not scoring 36 points as many times as he's scoring 20 points. And he's not scoring 45 points as many times. I mean, that's hard to do. 45 points in a game, 61 points in a game, very, very difficult. Right? And that's exactly what this is showing. All right, cool. So hopefully that helped you out there. The last thing that we need to do is we need to actually knit this document and into a PDF and then submit it to Google Classroom. So if you forget how to do this, we're going to do File and then Knit Document. And then we will give it a file name to go ahead and save that. Okay, so we need to install these packages. I forgot about that. In order to be able to run the R Markdown, so to knit our documents. So it'll take a second to install these packages. Installing the R Markdown dependencies. So these are the things that we need for it to actually be able to create this R Markdown file. All right, we'll change this to PDF, compile, and hopefully, if we did this correct, we will get a nice little R Markdown file. So you can see this just shows us all the things that we did, right? So this gave us a header, see what data we were looking at. And then we did table to see how many games he played for each of his teams. And we created a bar graph using ggplot to display that information. And we summarized LeBron's career statistics to find out some information. We wrote a comment. His career three-point percentage was 30.93%. And we created the table to show the number of games he scored a certain amount of points. And we noticed that he scored 25 points in 65 of the games that he's played. And finally, we created a histogram of this points per game data to show the distribution of the points that he scores in a game. And if you're in statistics, this is very normally distributed, right? When we get a large number of data points, it tends to follow a normal distribution. All right. Good luck on your T2 exam. I have faith in you. You guys rock. We'll see you on the other side.